Welcome to the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Insightful and witty commentary, probing interviews, and detours from the beaten path.
Every once in a while, we have to bring out the big dog.
Yeah.
Oh, God help us. It's time for Danny Unleashed. Sponsored by Easton Roofing, where integrity matters. Go to eastonroofing.com for more.
Easton Roofing, the folks that were up on my roof thought I had big problems. Thanks to the integrity of Easton Roofing, I found out, no, I just needed a couple of simple repairs. No payments collected with Easton Roofing until you're 100% satisfied. And if right now times are tight when it comes to the finances, know that Easton Roofing has multiple financing options. Other roofing companies have just one, and you either take it or leave it. That's not how it works with Easton Roofing. Multiple lenders competing for your business, different options for you to choose. If it's time to get that roof looked at, have a free inspection and estimate with Easton Roofing, and then sit down and talk about the best way to finance the roof. Call Easton Roofing today at 913-257-5426. Joe Spiker and his team, absolutely fantastic. You can see Easton Roofing online at eastonroofing.com. Danny, do you play the pickleball?
You know, I have yet to play pickleball. I have been urged to play pickleball by some friends of mine, and my schedule hasn't worked out to do it. It sounds like a really fun game, and I know that my friends they play weekly and just love it.
The A10 WHB pickleball tournament.
I've heard that.
Kansas City's champion will be crowned July 14th and 15th. Registration closes on Monday at 5, so still some spots for you to get your team in. It is open to beginners, intermediates, and experts. It's a10whb.com. They're on the, it's right down the right side, just a little bit down, maybe midway down the page. You'll see it, or you can go straight to it by going to a10whb.com/KC Pickleball. Get a T-shirt out of the deal, get a gift certificate to
that
eat.
Trophy is something else.
The trophy is it's a really cool trophy. If you're going to win the trophy, it's a really cool trophy. Get signed up. We've got just 32 teams available in each division. So sign up today at 810whb.com/KC Pickleball. We'll have lots of goodies for you and everything. You will have a great time. Thanks to our friends at Chicken and Pickle and us here at Sports Radio 810 WHB. Danny, we'll start with the Royals, don't you think?
I guess before we get to training camp, it is still the story in Kansas City, and unfortunately the Royals have made it a story that is, if they were just a handful of games under 500, even 8, if they were, if they played sort of at 460 ball all year, maybe it wouldn't be a story. It's like, okay, yeah, they're progressing a little bit the way we thought, and things are okay, and Hunter Dozier's playing pretty good, and we brought up one of the two pitchers, and he pitched, but it's just been an unmitigated disaster since 16-9. So that's a talking point.
They're on pace for 67 wins, and their recent trend is to blow past 100 losses.
Right.
Like the way they've played for the last 2 months is. Oh, they're not 100. It's 100 and how many?
7-25 since they were 3 games over.
Yeah, is that what it is?
Went from 29-26.
Well, they have so many. The latest one is they've lost 13 out of 16. But I mean, it depends. It's wherever you decide on the calendar to put a check mark. I mean, it's unfortunate.
They have currently right now the 5th pick in the draft. You're not getting behind the Diamondbacks because they had a plan, and they've stuck to it.
Part of that plan was losing 29 of 31 or 31 of 33 at one point. Hey, rock on, man.
They're going to have the number 1 pick.
Yep.
I mean, and there's value in that. And the biggest frustration right now, and where I think there has to be accountability, is you have to express how you have been the guy, the poster child, for not tanking.
And yet
your results
have been like you've been tanking.
Yes. That means you are way off course for whatever it is you are actually trying to do.
Stealth tank.
Right, because they, lost only twice? Did they lose 100 in the most recent streak?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they lost. If they get to 100 losses, and you're right, it seems like, it's like watching the cut line in a golf tournament when the guys are making birdies and the cut line's going to move up a stroke or something. The Royals, yes, they're on pace for 67, which means only 95 losses, but the way they're playing, you're like, well, they can make up that 5.
Yeah.
And if you lose 100, 3 out of 4 years, and one of the years you didn't even play enough games to lose 100, and you said you weren't trying to tank. In fact, you were just evangelical about not tanking. That's bad. I mean, it's really bad.
They lost 4 out of 5 in the early to middle 2000s, and that was an almost historic achievement. It hadn't happened in 50 years.
It was. It may not have been, the most in a row or the most with only one non, but it was historic.
It had been 50 years since it had been done, and they're barreling towards just one shy of that.
Well, if they would lose 100 games this year, 3 consecutive seasons that you played enough games,
right?
You played a full schedule. This will be the worst season on Dayton Moore's resume. I'm convinced of it, because at some point it can't just be like, well, we're working and we're building the guys up, and you can't talk about not tanking, completely look like a team that's tanking, but then not even bother to get down. You have the 7th pick out of your 60-game season. You didn't save the service time on Brady Singer. Like, there are things that, to me, you're just going to have to go, look, it's great. It's like you said last week. Number one is being a good ball player. Being a swell guy, that comes next or somewhere down the line. But it ain't number one. And too often that seems to be where they're going. Well, the nobility of not wanting to lose, that's great. But job one, win.
Right, and you also went out and you spent some money on Carlos Santana, and that's what you don't do when that's the evidence that you're not tanking. You go out and get a bona fide major league hitter instead of just playing Ryan O'Hearn all the time.
And then trading
or you try to play somebody else who hasn't played and probably showed you that they're not that good a player. That's what I'm. I usually try to do the Zoom on Sunday. I do it more often than that, but I mean, especially on Sunday after a series and of course the All-Star break. And if I get in the queue and I figure out how to raise my hand on my computer,
such a challenge.
You just want to hold your hand up on the screen.
Right?
Can someone just see me?
I might, but most of the time, the questions that I don't need to ask a question just to hear my own voice.
Right,
but.
That's a switch.
Hopefully it will be asked.
By Danny or by those that are on the Zooms?
By Danny. I want to hear my own voice.
The question will be, for Mike Matheny, the organizational questions are probably more overarching, but are you going to approach managing the second half of the season differently because of the situation you're in now? I mean, we talked about last week, I think we've gotten to the point where Greg Holland doesn't pitch in important situations anymore.
Well, he did last night.
I know, and he still is. Irvin Santana, no way he should be on the team. You got to start playing some guys who maybe, even if you're taking a flyer on them, it's better than playing guys who for sure are not going to be part of what now looks like at least a couple of years away before you figure you're going to be relevant, unless there's some kind of miracle. Now, the Astros did lose 100 games and then were good the next year, but they had young talent all over the place. And does this team look like one that can pull off something like that? I don't think so. Now, I guess you could have a scenario where it was a complete fluke and Jorge Soler and Hunter Dozier are all-stars next year and Bobby Witt comes up and he's a sensation and whatever, but it sure doesn't look like it.
Here's the frustration is you sit here, and as of right now, as we sit here, 4th year into the rebuild, right? You don't have a center fielder. You don't have a major league center fielder. You don't have anybody on the horizon. You don't have a major league shortstop. You've got possibilities, a miraculous healing process to occur on one guy, and that Bobby Witt Jr. guy who you used the 2nd overall pick on will step into that spot. I guess you have a second baseman if we're going to call Witt the second baseman, right? And you have a catcher, but you have not in 4 years find a center fielder.
Yeah. Right. Don't take a complete flyer on a guy who had basically one complete major league season and then is proving he is what the back of his baseball card is.
$1.7 million, he was. You never thought he was going to be a 1 year $1.7 million. You never thought he was going to be the answer. My point is, either have a guy or have a guy in Double-A who's got 16 home runs, a 340 on base percentage. You're like, well, he's not. He's only 20. He's not ready. But that's the guy. Have him in a high A ball at least have a guy that you can point to and go, this is a big league center fielder.
Yeah, because
or another team would point to.
Right.
Because you always overlove all your own guys. Like, how have you not traded for that position somewhere along the way? We went through this on the Giants.
Uh-huh.
The Giants, kind of bottomed out about the same time. They're back.
Right.
They lost 98 games in 2016, and they have the best record in the National League, one of the best records in baseball, within a game right at this moment. So
they're 1 year ahead of the Royals in the rebuild, okay?
Yeah.
Bottoming out in 16. That was their first year of okay, we got to redo this. And they're barreling towards 100 wins.
Yeah, so they were better last year than the Royals are this year by far. And if you want to try
They've gotten better every year for 3 years.
Yep.
The Royals are just spinning their wheels.
Try something this weekend if you're so inclined. Try to figure out who the starting outfield is on opening day in 2024. That's only 3 years away. Good luck. Because there's nobody in the system at any level you can say that I could find. Maybe there might have been one, but my recollection is I went, oh my God.
3 years away is a little bit, but even 23.
Yeah, 23. Looking at who's going to be gone.
I mean, here's one of the most puzzling things is, why did you re-sign Hunter Dozier? You treat him like he's the 25th man on the roster, giving his spot to Kelvin Gutierrez, who then 10 minutes later you release.
Right. He hits for a week, and you're like, ooh.
He's on his last straw, and he gets the position over Hunter Dozier. What is that?
I don't know.
Daniel Lynch is so ready, you plug him in with no minor league games, and now he can't get anybody out in the minors. He looks pedestrian in AAA. Like, what did you see? What was going on? There's no evidence that he was ready. Like, point to a success this year. Sal Perez, great at 31.
Yeah.
Well, no, that's not really a success because you expected good ball from him. Did you expect this? No, probably not.
I will give him. I'll give him Sal Perez because he said Sal is a guy. Dave Moore said to me before the season started, Sal Perez is a guy that we think is going to keep getting better as a hitter. So I'll give it to him.
All right,
but
I'll give him a success story.
I do think part of his contract, though, is to make up for the fact that he's been underpaid through the last two contracts. Everyone's like, I don't know if that's a good deal. I think he's making sure that 15-year-old kids in Venezuela know that if you really ball, we're not going to screw you. I think that's half the reason he signed is because they got him so over a barrel, the first contract.
Right.
Still at a discount, the second one. Now it was like, okay, here's the make good so that when we deal with agents in Latin America, they know we're not trying to screw guys over.
Right. I think there's a lot of that. I mean, it's the season, as I said, it is newsworthy now because of they've made it so. They have not made it mundane even. They've made it a train wreck. And for discussion of sports, there is nothing that is more compelling than being either really good or really bad. Now, if you're really bad for a while and the Royals are now, again, barreling toward that, then eventually people just won't care, period. And that's the thing that's the biggest problem about this season is the fact that they're headed back to a place where the Royals are kind of become a joke again. You know, they were a joke for a while, and only the diehard fan who would go out there and you could easily make fun of them, and on the usual conversation on a talk show will be jokes about the Royals,
about there being 4 tickets on the dashboard, and someone breaks in and leaves 4 more there. We had the 15-1 loss. We were in Hen House that Wednesday when they lost, and that seemed to be one of the possible low points. And people called in. I mean, they were still caring enough to call. Now they won't go to the games. I don't blame them because it didn't cost whatever it cost to call and talk about the game. That they clearly, there's still clearly a passion for the team to get good.
Yeah, and we saw it when they gave them a brief window of winning 2.7 million people went to the games.
Yeah.
You know, there were over 2 million, 3 years in a row, I think. I mean, be competitive. And
right, they really didn't capitalize on that. Now, to the fans, not the fans, to the large amount of people who were just there for the party, it dissipated more quickly than I figured it would. Now, I didn't think that it was going to just hang in there at 2.7 if the Royals were mediocre, but their attendance collapsed pretty fast. So
it did.
What you proves is that being relevant is okay, but just being mediocre, they're not going to show up in great numbers. They'll still show up in good numbers, and your TV ratings are good, as it were. And there still was some outrage when Bally Sports screwed up the end of the game the other day. But if you keep doing this, you go back to the mid-2000s again, and that's not where you want to be. It's not.
Here's their attendance from 15 through, well, we'll skip
2000
the last 2
to
years.
2010.
Yeah, 2.7 and 15, then 2.55, 2.2, 1.6, 1.48. The 1.48 from 2019 is the lowest since 2006.
The really surprising one was, now they were close to probably somewhat maxing out, but the surprising one was 16, that it dropped. Usually the year after you win,
it goes up.
It goes up.
The big jump was after the World Series. It went from 1.9 to 2.7.
Right, and that
After
was
the
what
first
was
World Series.
surprising, that the next year. But it wasn't. I mean, 2015 was just such a rollicking rock show and the next year, while they were 500, it was like, where's the magic? Where's the?
Well, we just talked about that stretch
They're still
earlier.
at 2.2.
They lost.
Right, it was still good.
Yeah.
No, don't get me wrong. I mean,
But they lost 100 games in 4 out of 5 years.
2.55, but it still dropped, which is a little bit
Was that what it was?
surprising.
From 02 to 06, we talked about 100 losses 4 times in 5 years. And in 2007, they drew 1.6 million. That's a million more, or 100,000 more than they did in 2019.
Well, I think there was a little bit of the party's over and I'm exhausted.
That could
Right?
be.
Like, I think there was an element of that. You need to build back, the feeling that the fans knew that they had a shot.
Right.
And we're back to feeling like, no, it doesn't. Like, who do you want to get excited about? Like, now it's almost going to rub off on Bobby Witt. Like, well, we know when he gets up here, though, he's going to struggle and go up and down for 2 years, because that's what happens to their prospects.
Right, and the other part of it is you have to. The Royals were such a unique thing. Whether they really were or not, they were a lovable bunch to the fans.
Right.
They had personality and they played a unique brand of baseball. So there are a lot of things that tied into it. But you're in real danger here. You are. I mean, what's going to be the excitement level heading into next season? Because one of the things that fans are probably tired of is the fact that even when the Royals have stunk the subsequent year, sometimes they've played well at the end. But nobody's going to buy that again. Say they have another good, last 40 games this year. Well, they've done that 3 or 4 times recently and then stunk the next year anyway.
It would
So
if they saw.
That's not going to be any narrative people that they're going to be able to build on.
If they saw, if Lynch and Kowar and those guys come up and
Witt.
pitch, and you see some promise from them, then maybe there's something to build off. Something that the guys who they're going to rely on over the next 3 years come up and play well and they win. But if it's the same collection of guys doing it, no one's going to care.
Well, that's the other problem so far this year. The things that you could hang your hat on are all just veteran players who are good. Mm-hmm. And even in that case, Whit Merrifield's really not having that great a season. I mean, it's okay, but it's not even. He's not even up to his standard. But it's so much better than the rest of the chum around him that he looks like a stud.
Yeah. Let's take a break. We'll come back. We'll talk about what they can trade at the trade deadline. Danny Clinkscale is with us. He's brought to you by our friends at Easton Roofing. Joe Spiker and his team handle both commercial and residential roofing, gutters, insulation. Yep, they handle that as well. Happy to do repairs and always educating you about every possible solution to whatever your issue might be. I thought I was headed to a new roof, just needed repairs. I appreciate the integrity of Easton Roofing, getting you back to business, getting you back to life faster. That's Easton Roofing. See them online at eastonroofing.com.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
I'm here with Joe Spiker, owner of Easton Roofing, and boy, we had to negotiate a million things in 2020, but Easton Roofing navigated them all. As 2021 rolls out, what should we expect this coming storm season?
Well, Danny, it'll be the same thing as it is every year. The storms come, and you've got the guys out knocking on doors offering quote-unquote free inspections. Be wary as a homeowner. If somebody's knocking on your door, they probably need the work, and if they need the work that bad, they may be willing to do something untoward to get it. So if somebody knocks on your door, says they want to give you a free inspection, just tell them have a great day and give us a call. We'll come out for free and give you a good, honest opinion as to whether or not you need to do anything at all with your roof.
And what's the best way to get in touch with Easton Roofing?
You can always find us online at eastonroofing.com or give us a call at 913-257-5426.
Easton Roofing. Integrity matters.
All right, the Joe's Kansas City Barbecue burnt end of the hour answer.
Lay it on me, Kay.
Before Daniel Camarena, who was the last reliever to hit a grand slam? I noted that it happened in 1985 by one of the better hitting pitchers, certainly of his era, if not of all time. 26 pinch hitting opportunities this pitcher had.
85.
Pittsburgh Pirates, 1985.
Does he have a Z? No, okay. I don't know. I got nothing.
Danny?
This is probably going to bother me when I hear it, but it'll be bad radio. If
Was
I
a
just
Pirate starter? Doug Drabeck?
He started primarily for the Pirates, but he was a reliever on this game. He was relieving. Was he relieving in this game?
Enough.
Did John Candelaria?
Don Robinson.
Oh, right.
No, that doesn't bother me in the least bit.
It doesn't bother me as much as it could have, but yes, Don Robinson. I think he was a converted outfielder, I believe.
But 26 pinch hitting appearances. This is a little something.
I could hit a little.
Especially
hit it off Warren Brewster.
Especially at a time when you had more men on the bench. You had more position players on the bench in 1985, probably two more than you do now.
Joe's Kansas City Barbecue, what we were playing for. Get you some wonderful Joe's Kansas City Barbecue. Absolutely always a top shelf choice. Get a short end of ribs. The ribs are, listen, I'll beat the drum for the ribs. They are out of this world. Get you a Z-Man. My favorite sandwich, the Rocket Pig. Fries, onion rings, best in the city. It is absolutely wonderful. Go to joeskc.com and don't forget about the Kansas City Barbecue Store at 119th and Strangline. Everything you need, sauces, rubs, grill, utensils. It's where we go for all of ours. In fact, we're headed out to the Kansas City Barbecue Store because my wife refuses to use I need new grill tongs, because the grill tongs were used to extricate a dead mouse from the air conditioner. I said, well, we can boil them. No, they go in the trash. I'm like, okay. It's the only thing I needed, something to manipulate to get the carcass.
We had a little mouse, probably family or whatever, that was in the grill. Like I'd chase it out of there like every time I opened up the grill.
That's brutal.
And then I'd say, come on, little fella, get out of there. I'm going to turn the gas on here. And he'd go. And the dog now, our younger dog, is always snooping around for them. And the mice aren't there this year. They have not reappeared.
Why don't you kill him?
But he's still snooping around. Well, they just come back. I don't really have it. He's not doing any harm.
I'd like to point out, why don't you just kill them? Oh, they'd come back.
They
no, if they're dead, they're not coming
mice
back.
are notorious for
somebody else would come back. Well, they did. There was no issue. It just ran off, and I didn't want to kill it.
I don't want mice around where I'm putting my food.
Well, I'm about to turn on 8,000 degrees of heat.
No, more like 550, 600 tops.
And I'm sure when they were
grill's
living in
really
your
hot.
grill, they probably weren't using the bathroom, so I bet that's really making your steaks taste great.
I still just the concept. I don't want
Well,
rodents around where I'm going to put my food.
Hey,
Go to Danny's for food.
I always cleaned the thing, so it was like, it's just hey, the fussiest person maybe on the face of the earth in these regards is my wife, and if it didn't bother her, it didn't bother me.
Okay. Whatever. Not coming to your house for a grill out. I'll tell you that.
Just the
Well, then mice aren't there anymore. So
the humor of possibly, and it wouldn't be at your grill, but to be upset with mouse droppings, and then we'll throw some 4 or 5 hot dogs on the brats on the grill. Yeah, no, never any problems with stuff like that, is there?
You're not helping, Curtis. We will move forward. Danny Cleek Scale brought to you by our
please.
friends at Easton Roofing here. What do they do now at the deadline?
Probably nothing of significance. And also a couple of the pieces that, or a piece, for instance, Scott Barlow would seem to be somebody you might get something for, and then they run him into the ground, and he's been ineffective 2 times in a row. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure other organizations are like, well, look, his shoulder's ready to go. He's pitched half the games. He's pitched 41 games already this year.
In a season that's going nowhere.
I saw only five pitchers have more appearances than him. By the way, Brent has 41 as well. They're using some dudes up.
Well, because they've got to hide the senior tour that they've got out there that are just around for shoots and giggles, apparently. And listen, I've been sticking up for Greg Holland, but he is trending towards Wade Davis. He wasn't earlier. He was much more effective.
He was hanging in there, and you could say, okay, that's a. Now, whether he still should have been closing games at that point is another argument. But now he just looks like he's still probably somebody who's worthy of being on the staff to mop some stuff up, like what Wade Davis is doing now. Or did he get sent to the IL, didn't he? I think.
Yeah.
Forearm tightness or something.
Whatever.
Sore ego.
Right. He gets sent to Medicare.
I don't like running those guys down, and so don't bring them back for the fans to have the. Irvin Santana did good work for this team. Wade Davis did incredible work for the Greg Holland did incredible work for this team.
Let them fade into the dust for the Diamondbacks, or the Rockets or whatever.
And we talked about this last week about how I really think that one of the things they got to do is look themselves in the mirror and admit how bad the Alex Gordon contract was. Well, the same thing is like. This isn't working. Like, well, we wanted him back. Or that, teach these young guys. It's not working.
Yeah. Right. Are you trying?
How long are you going to keep? Alex Gordon didn't teach anybody to hit the entire time he was here, and where are the results? What did Alex Gordon's workout routine do for Adalberto Mondesi? Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Yep. And also, what would have been heard a million times from ball players? I mean, somebody really can't be a leader unless they can still play.
Yes.
When they brought in Terry Pendleton.
Yeah, that was the best example.
You got to still be able to play. Now, you don't have to be great. You don't have to be Wade Davis that you were before, but you have to still be a significant guy. Like, well, I'm not listening to that guy.
ERA of 7.
I'm not listening to that rag arm. I mean, what? You're just not.
James Shields was the leader.
Right. Yes.
I mean, he was Cool Hand Luke in that clubhouse.
And all you had to do was be there to know it.
When you watched him walk around, you saw how the other guys reacted to him. You saw how he strolled through the clubhouse. He was the king crap, okay? And go find him, one of those guys.
A lot of that was 14-8 in a 3.21 ERA.
Yeah, but you know what else? And 200-plus innings, which is a badge of honor for all starting pitchers. I mean, he talked it and he walked it. And that's the thing is, Wade Davis, even at his peak, I couldn't get Wade Davis. I said, do you set any goals for yourself? This is at the height of his. Oh, God, no. No. I'm like, well, why not? Well, I mean, what if I fall short? I mean, Wade Davis was not. He was not a guy that you're like, you need to do it like that guy. He was not James Shields in the bullpen. He came out there, and it seemed like it was a Western, and here comes Clint Eastwood to mow everybody down. But his mindset was like, I won't even talk about a save total because I don't want to fall short of it, which I was fascinated by and was an incredibly entertaining interview.
After they won it.
Yes. Or was it after they won it, or was it after 14 going into 15?
Could have been.
I think it was going into 15. No, maybe it was after 15 going into 16. He's the guy. He's the best reliever in baseball, and he doesn't even want to talk about numbers or anything like that because
Yeah, he seemed all of his swagger was in his performance.
Yes.
He was coming off literally the best 2-year relief pitching run in the history of the game.
And he was like, don't jinx it. Right? Like, literally, that was his mindset. So that's the plan to teach the guys?
Yeah, I don't know. And there was no... At least Greg Holland had shown some glimpses in his time away from the Royals. Davis, the last couple of years, has just been awful. So... there are some things that Right. Nothing's worked. That's the problem. I mean, really, nothing has worked. You said look for a bright spot. When you're looking at a bright spot that's been here for 10 years in Sal Perez, that's even if he did improve, and okay, we'll give him a check mark for that because they said they thought he would
it's like
improve.
getting credit for
and
writing your name on your test.
When they re-signed him, okay.
Yeah, but it's not a big like that one's been known. Like where are the successes on guys that have been added to the mix since that weren't part of the World Series? Right? Okay, I guess kind of Witt, but he should have been on the World Series team instead of Mondesi, as we've covered. But they're like it's getting really hard. You know, I get these people that are like, "Oh, yeah, now you're coming around to the fact that Moore's the problem." I'm like, "No, I'm accumulating the facts, and now the evidence is starting to be there. Before, you're just a guy that didn't like Dayton Moore, and then they won a World Series, and you had to shut up for a few years. And so the first time they stumbled, you were back on it saying he sucks. Well, we all knew they were going to have to rebuild. The problem is now we have evidence. We're 4 years into it, and we're not seeing it. And my fear is like Brady Singer is going to complete his second. They have 6 years of team control, and he's going to start getting expensive in year 4. Well, they're not contending in year 3. He'll be in arbitration before they even have a shot of contending, it seems like. That's a big problem.
Right, and the other part of it for this year is that what you've had is a Tigers team that still hasn't arrived, although since their awful start, the Tigers have played 7 or 8 games over 500 for a long stretch of time now. But the Indians have just been, it's been a massacre of injuries for them. And the Twins have been incredibly underachieved. So you really had a year where, in your division, where there was opportunity. Now the White Sox clearly are the class of the.
But there was opportunity to fight your way into second place and at least let the fans dream about the wild card.
Yes, yes, indeed. So I think everybody thinks the Twins have too much talent to be down. The Indians have a whole bunch of players who seemingly would get healthy, and one of them beat you last night. Because he just came back and he's hit home runs in 3 straight games. So it was a good year. That's another thing. You got a lot of wins out there.
And here's what's frustrating.
What's the record against the Tigers this year?
We can
losing.
We can sit there and be like, okay, you're not hitting home runs, but we know that's not what you really do, and it's a big ballpark. But then stop giving them up.
Right. If the
they
ballpark
don't move the fences in when you go out to the field.
Yeah, it's like. Then prevent a few. We
know me. I've always thought that the ballpark thing's overdone. I mean,
I agree.
When you watch every game, I watch every Royals game, at least, fast sometimes, but I watch every single Royals game. How many wall scrapers are there? Not many. Most home runs are, if all they have to be is 4 or 5 rows deep, and they're out.
They had the double for Nicky Lopez, I don't know, a week or so ago, where they showed, hey, here's where it'd be if we were in this, and listen, they get robbed of some home runs,
sure.
but listen, Pac Bell is not a great home run hitter's park. You know who's leading the National League in home runs, maybe even baseball? The San Francisco Giants. Oh, it's because they have, Shohei Ohtani with 32. No. They don't have anybody at 20.
Right.
Yet, aren't they number 1 in the NL? And, well, here, I've got it open. Why don't I just look at my own thing? The Blue Jays have hit 128 home runs. The Giants have hit 127.
Right.
They have pitchers batting. One away from the Jays, who I'm convinced have a pharmaceutical company souping them up. Now, I'm also might be fairly convinced that the San Francisco Giants have a pharmaceutical company that's souping up their pitchers. If they don't, then they found a pitching coach because who was the list? Alex Cobb's been good, but hadn't been good for 3 years.
Kevin Gausman.
Out
of nowhere, is throwing up 174 and was good last year.
Who was a first-round pick, but never really put it all together. Now, suddenly, for 2 years, he's lights out. By the way, he was signed 1 year, $9 million going into the 2020 season. And then they offered him a qualifying offer. This year he's at 18 point whatever the qualifying offer was. And they're getting big-time return from Gausman. Where is that signing?
Anthony DeSclafani, who in 6 years with the Reds and Marlins
was
had
okay.
a 4.3 ERA, 2.84, 9 and 3.
Yeah.
At 31.
In the same ballpark where they've hit 127 home runs.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, like they get a hold of guys, and they make them better.
And that's what the Rays do, and that's what the Indians do.
So at this, I'm not going to say you got to do it at the deadline. I think you're ready to do it. If you've got opportunity, you've made changes in season at hitting and pitching coaches before. So it's not like, oh, we just never do that. If it's not them, then you've got to be brooming development people. Because it's not happening. You're 4 years into it, and it's not happening.
Right. You're compiling too much evidence. And could you... Last year they had COVID in a short season as an excuse. But they sold it, and this year is far enough down the line that nobody was expecting real contention. You were just expecting the look of a future contender, and what they've done is completely submarined that feeling, and that's a shame.
I'm looking here, of course, because baseball, in their imminent wisdom, it just can't be satisfied with, getting something right. They've screwed up MILB.com, so it makes it a near impossible. All my bookmarks are now dead on being able to go look at the Royals minor league system, so now it takes me forever. But they don't even have – they have Bobby Witt Jr., Nick Prado's back on the prospect side, but, he's back from the dead. And they have Witt Jr., and, there should be this, it's not a wave that's coming.
No, it's him. Now, hopefully he's good enough that it's almost the equivalent of a wave. And it's kind of getting to the point where you're looking at it and going, now what are they doing with him? They brought up two pitchers and basically let them embarrass themselves. So maybe that made them more gun shy on Witt, because he's tearing up AA right now, and he has to go to AAA first because of the COVID protocols. So maybe they're waiting for after the Futures game. I don't know. If he's not in AAA after the All-Star break, I don't know what they're doing.
Well, and he's of the age that's where he ought to be moving to. By the way, Witt's number, Prado now a 974 OPS, Bobby Witt Jr. a 941.
Right, and in the last 20 games or so, it's like some 1,300.
MJ Melendez, I should put in there as well, 940, right? And maybe there is. Listen, they did have Whit Merrifield and Salvi were never on anybody's radar, and they ended up being really good. So maybe there's one or two more there. If Melendez is going to come up and be the catcher, and
but as each year passes, you just can't keep saying, well, this is going to happen, because it keeps not happening.
Right. And that's a problem. We'll take a break. Danny Clinkscale is with us. He's brought to you by our friends at Easton Roofing. Joe Spiker and his team will be happy to come out and give you a free estimate. It is eastonroofing.com, or call 913-257-5426. Many lending choices to help you out. If it's time for a re-roof and the finances are tight, let them go to work for you. Unlike other roofers that have just one option, they have many options to finance your roof. Go to Easton Roofing. It's where I went. It's where Danny went. Call 913-257-5426. See him online at eastonroofing.com.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
I'm here with Joe Spiker, owner of Easton Roofing. And Joe, there's all kinds of roofing companies in Kansas City. People see their trucks, they see their ads, they see their commercials on TV. What separates you out from the pack?
Danny, there's a lot of roofers in Kansas City that are good roofers that can put a good roof on, but we like to pride ourselves on giving you a good customer service experience. From the first time you call, you're going to get a friendly voice on the phone. We're going to let you know what's happening and when it's happening. And, the other piece is some companies are small enough to do small jobs. Some companies are big enough to do big jobs. We're right there in the middle. We can handle the little stuff. We can handle your repairs all the way up to your big commercial roofs.
So what's the best way for folks to get in touch with you at Easton Roofing?
You can find us at eastonroofing.com, or you can always call us at 913-257-5426. That's 913-257-5426.
Easton Roofing. Integrity matters.
You're listening to the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Danny Clinkscale, Little Danny Unleashed, brought to you by our friends at Easton Roofing. Our buddy Joe Spiker will be happy to take care of you the way he's taking care of Danny and I's roof. Call Joe today, whether it's commercial or residential. No payment collected until you're 100% satisfied. The entire metro, including Lawrence and Topeka. Call 913-257-5426. Online, it's eastonroofing.com. Danny, the 7th overall pick, Kumar Rocker. Are you good with that? That's the latest ESPN mock draft, is Kumar Rocker making it to the Royals.
The baseball draft is well. I guess I'm good for the standpoint that he has been thought of in the past as the number one pick. Now, why I've seen various reasons given why he has fallen off of that particular pedestal, but if somebody had that pedigree for a long, long time and you're at the 7th pick, that would be an upside pick.
Yeah.
So that would be okay by me, I guess. For me to sit here and try to say that, I'm going to stamp my foot down on what I think the Royals should do with the 7th pick in the draft, I can't do that. All I can do is read other people's ideas and opinions. But that guy was considered the guy for quite a long time, and if you get him at 7, we'll see. I guess at 7, I think it's, from what we've talked about, however, I'd be more happy if the Royals picked a position player, I think, at this point in time. I mean, how many times are you going to go down the you have to have gotten it right with this big passel of pitchers you've already picked, okay? And the evidence right now is that you don't have much hitting in your system. So I guess if you're going to pick a pitcher, Rocker's okay by me, but I would have a better feeling if they picked a position player.
They give the names James Triantos. They said the write-up says, we hear about Kumar. It said, keep an eye on prep shortstops James Triantos and Jackson Merrill at later picks.
And people will say, well, shortstops, you got Bobby Witt Jr. Well, shortstops can play anywhere.
Yeah, they can play anywhere.
And if they're good players, that's fine. Basically, everybody plays shortstop when they're a really great. When they're the best player, they play shortstop. Unless they're just a plow horse.
Those guys are
or
not
left-handed.
They are not. Neither one of them, I just scrolled through, is listed in the first round of the draft. So that's like information that they're getting that they're the Royals are on them and probably working on signability and things. They've got the Royals 43, Jackson Merrill. They have them get them at 43 and whatnot. But if they're looking at those, then if one of the other young shortstops is there, that they could go that route there and have some other pitcher later. But bottom line is, guys, they got to start getting here and producing. And they've got to stop acting like the draft is the only way to get talent.
And how many 22-year-old stars are there in baseball right now? A slew of them.
Yeah.
There's 4 or 5
Soto,
guys.
Tatis Jr.
Right. Guerrero.
The Royals, it's 25 when you debut.
Right. And they need some of those. We've been waiting forever for Bobby Witt Jr. to be A-Rod, for want of a different example. For a guy to come up and just be the man. Or just use the examples of now, Tatis and Guerrero. Of course, the Royals' generational players, father's in jail, and he can't stay on the field. So they picked the wrong one. We got the wrong junior. Hasn't that unfortunately been the case for the Royals?
What is your takeaway on the NBA Finals? Do you have any? Just that are the Suns, like I hear people not wanting to give, the Zone, Corey Anderson said, the Suns and Bucks aren't even a factor next year, that the big teams, the Nets and the Lakers will be back ruling the roost.
I think the Suns are.
I think they're pretty good.
Yeah, and I think they're the one thing they've done it differently. They have developed their team. They brought Chris Paul in, but it's not like they created a team. They developed a team, and that team should.
Well, they tanked,
and that team should and they had a lot
because
of
they also swung and missed on Dragan Bender at 3 or 4 in the draft. They swung and missed on. They had another just terrible pick in there, so they haven't been lights out. They had one draft that really
they
hit.
had a lot of
Ayton
picks.
And Mikal Bridges came in the same one, and they got it right with Devin Booker.
Right.
But yeah, I'm impressed with what they've done. They've also put other good pieces around.
Right. I think they're absolutely a factor. The same old folks are getting old.
Yeah.
I mean, sooner, okay, Tom Brady, whatever. This is basketball. Sooner or later, LeBron's just going to be a good player. Or Kobe was excellent until 40, I guess. Was he 40 when he played this last year?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's still possible that I'm not saying he's going to fade away next year, but that's a bona fide team. Now, this year, they're probably ahead of schedule, and the circumstances of all the injuries have probably conspired for them to, it seems, maybe win the title. It's not over yet, certainly, but I think they're absolutely going to be a factor in the future.
Yeah, I do too. Danny, great stuff as always, my friend. Appreciate it. Check out DannyClinkscale.com to see all his great work. We'll do it again next week, buddy.
Sounds like a plan.
Danny Clinkscale, brought to you by Easton Roofing.
This podcast was made possible by our great sponsors like Easton Roofing, the presenting sponsor of Kansas City Profiles at the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Easton Roofing, where integrity matters. We hope you enjoyed the latest Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Come back soon for something fresh and new.